Stephen Browning.
Chair, rise to speak to Part 2 of the bill, of the Telecommunications, Interception, Capability and Security Bill. This interception capability, again, is this part of the same problem we talked about in Part 1, whereas we have to ask, where were the instructions for New Zealand to go down this track? Was it just because of through the Kim.com case where there's some illegal surveillance, some illegal spying, and we're fixing that up? Because even when the officials were looking at this bill and looking at how can we compare with other countries and how does our legislation stack up, what were the sort of layers of interception capability required in other places, the places they looked at were our Five Eyes partners. I didn't recall seeing anything else. There was United States, United Kingdom, Canada and Australia, and that's where the comparisons were done. And clearly there's an international move, and the Minister said it herself about where there was nothing internationally that we weren't consistent with. Well, we're apparently getting less and less inconsistent with the Five Eyes echelon partnership. And it would seem, in fact, that this is what a lot of this is about. Of course, we need some capacity for natural law surveillance. We have the issues of kidnapping, issues of serious crime, where we expect and accept, it seems, as a community, a certain level of surveillance. Now, that can happen under existing legislation and clearly does. What wasn't happening was surveillance by the spy agents, or sorry, that was happening illegally, but what wasn't meant to be happening was spying on New Zealand citizens by an internationally linked spy agency, the GCSB. And I will keep on the Waihopai and the spy agency thing, because that is often forgotten about when we look at where these different capabilities are in terms of access. And I did touch on it earlier. The Minister, in her letter to us, was talking about in Clause 39, which is part of Part 2, that the bill currently allows the responsible minister to direct that a network operator must not resell an overseas telecommunications service in New Zealand where the interception capability or lack of interception capability raises a significant risk to law enforcement or national security. And that, of course, we've looked at some of that under the interpretation, but that also can be rather subjective. What is a significant risk to law enforcement? What is a significant risk to national security? Some of this is only necessary in a full surveillance state. It isn't about dealing with organised crime and that in a way that the police could be managing under other law or some other issues that might be done under the Search and Surveillance Bill. This is law that allows something much greater and, as I say, only necessary in a surveillance state. Big Brother. There is a need for a full, genuine inquiry as to what we actually want as citizens in this country for a surveillance base or surveillance law, surveillance agencies. We need that discussion because these things, the GCSB bill and this bill and this interception capability in Part 2 here, is all about trade-offs between privacy, human rights and a level of access by state agencies and some unfortunately linked with overseas agencies. So what will we do? What are we prepared to do as citizens in terms of that trade-off? There is some point where we will say, no, the risk isn't worth it because it may not happen in years, the event or the concern, terrorism as such, or it might happen once or twice in terms of a kidnapping, Mr. Chair.
Stephen Browning.
We have to look at that level of risk as to how much we will give over in terms of the reduction in privacy and the like. So the access is, the level of access is a big part of this. Yes, under Part 2 of this bill, the network operators as such must ensure that every public network they own, control or operate has full interception capability. I think what the Minister and the officials have achieved in terms of the bill is probably very, very effective for what they are trying to achieve, but it doesn't make it right. And that's the point that the Greens are very, very concerned about. We don't think it's right. There are other parts, though, I must say, around the effectiveness, and you'd have to question about the size of the operators, you know, those with fewer than 4,000 customers, and it's got a staggered level of obligation around capability. And in some respects, you'd say that's fair enough, because some don't have the economic capacity maybe to achieve everything, but they still have to be able to turn it on, basically, if the Minister decides it. In that different degree, and also in the aspect around encryption and decryption, where some encryption these agencies aren't going to nail. And we know that through the committee stage, that not this committee stage, but the select committee stage, that there's an acknowledgement that not everything is going to be able to be surveilled. And then you have to say, well, if that isn't going to be that effective at that point, is that fair that some operators have to still provide when another one has got a way through or a way out of it? And so we have to say, is there a point when we don't do some of these things? Because the things that are absolutely critical and accepted by the community can be done through another method. So if it's not even going to be able to be applied fully, maybe it's time for us to have a rethink. And that's why we say we need to have a full independent inquiry to look at this, including the interception capability aspects of it. The Law and Order Select Committee also recommended that proposed regulations relating to the Part 2 of the bill be the subject of consultation with the telecommunications industry. And clearly the Green Party will support Claire Curran's SOP on that basis, because there is that concept of a group, an industry group or others, where some of these issues can be considered. So the Green Party will be opposing, and we're looking forward to other aspects of this bill to bring up too. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Chris Farfoy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for a chance to speak to Part 2 of the Telecommunications Interception Capability and Security Bill. On this Labor side of the House, we'd like to thank the Minister for standing up and taking a call in this part of the bill, because there's no better advertisement for reasons for this legislation